What are some other success factors that we pay attention to throughout the process?
Software is complex. One that comes to mind is stakeholder alignment. So a lot of times, we're not just working with a singular client. When we do, you might have a VP of product that's responsible for the product, but there are many other stakeholders in the organization, from sales and marketing and customer support and regulatory. And do they all have the same vision? That really undermines the success of the team that's trying to design and build the product when the stakeholders are all off in different places, in terms of what they expect and what they want. So early on, we do go through an effort to make sure that we're all aligned around that. It gets more complex when we start having third parties involved, or, maybe there's an integration or a partnership with another company. So they can, over time, not be fully aligned. It's like the parallel tracks that aren't 100% parallel. And over time, you find that we're really on pretty divergent tracks. So there's a lot of effort around alignment, around vision, around the outcomes that we're seeking after. That is a big success factor, or can undermine the success.
Yeah, I think we sometimes are working with somebody who says, we've had this idea for a while and we just can't get it off the ground. And when we work with somebody, they often come from a place of being stuck. One of the reasons they're stuck is team alignment. And by focusing on aligning the team early in the process, it really helps them to get unstuck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the funny thing. Risk is, it's going to vary with every project, that these 4 buckets of risk that we're talking about are present in every project, but not in the same degree, or, one might be more critical than another. So the teams are pretty adept at calling that out and figuring out, where the real priorities are. They're not always evenly distributed, in neat little buckets. But time and time again, this process of identifying the critical outcomes, understanding kind of where the risks are and what assumptions are driving that, and then how can we get in early and test, has proven to be instrumental in the success of our project. So, there are lots of, when it happens, it's pretty magical, that it's a really,
I'm sure there's a lot of examples
thing.
That come to mind.
Yeah, to see. I mean, we were working on a very complex enterprise application, meant for some of the world's largest corporations, some of the world's largest universities, hospital, healthcare systems, all as a way of assessing and improving their cybersecurity defense. So a kind of sobering
topic that's on everybody's mind these days. It's like super important. I think everybody's thinking about this.
They literally had NASA researchers, that were sort of developing some of the smarts around ways to calculate and score progress in these areas. But we were able to get in and kind of help them understand kind of where these risks were. And we tested it at different points in the process. But when you're in there, I remember, very early, we had an early build of the software, and we could solve at least one of several problems pretty completely, and we wanted to show that. So we were doing, live testing with some of these chief security officers from these companies all over the world, and different time zones and all of that. And what we learned out of that was, number one, we were solving the right problems. They thought, there was a very positive reaction to the overall usability and user interface. But we learned that while the software was very heavily focused on kind of maybe one business unit at a time, and the general feedback was, this is awesome, but if it only can sort of focus on this one business unit, we need it to focus on all of these. Like when you're a big global company and you have 13, 14 business units worldwide, we want to be collecting all this data and rolling it up to one global, 50,000 foot view of our security practices. And
so there's value risk in there. There's usability risk there.
Technical feasibility. But what we found was, we had a great architecture and we had a lot of good design patterns in place that it was a pivot, but it wasn't as difficult as we thought. And boy, did it ramp the value of the product. And after we were able to demonstrate that, it took a little bit of time and re-engineering, but was a critical pivot before the market release. They were able to definitely light up a number of corporate clients that they might have had a hard time getting to. They were able to increase their expected licensing fees for the software because there was nobody else that did what we did. And when we were hearing that we were helping these groups, these security officers take processes that would take weeks in their organization and down to a matter of hours, super exciting and, clearly impacted bottom line. And, when we talk about outcomes, like much more efficient, much more secure, much easier to communicate upward to their boards.
Taking a topic like cybersecurity that's super complex,
right,
and making it simple so executives, board members could understand. Okay, here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Here's how we're getting more secure.
That all came out of that understanding of risk and our efforts to mitigate that on the client's behalf.
That's a fantastic example, I think, of how all this comes together throughout the process.
Yeah.
That was not something that happened instantaneously. It's something that we unpacked over time, and as we learn.